Today I'm going to teach you how you can bake sourdough bread every day, even when you have a regular job and you need to make it after work hours. So, to begin, we're going to start with this dough that I prepared yesterday after work, and I'm going to shape it so it's ready to bake today. Okay, so this is the dough that I started yesterday and I put it in the fridge overnight. So now I'm going to shape it and then let it proof for 2 to 3 hours, so it'll be ready to bake today. So you just kind of want to shape it into a ball. And you can see the dough is nice and bubbly because the starter is very active. And once you kind of get a rough ball shape, then you flip it over and you want to start getting some tension in the dough. Okay, and then you put it in the proofing basket and you'll let it proof for 2 to 3 hours. And once it's in the proofing basket, you want to cover it. Okay, so that's the bread we're going to bake today. Now I'm going to show you how to actually make the bread dough. So to do that, you need some flour, a cup of starter, and a cup of warm water. So I've measured out a cup of starter. And then you want to add about a cup of water. And then you want to mix the starter and the water together to break it up a little bit. Okay, so this flour I pre-measured. It is 2 cups of all-purpose unbleached flour, half a cup and 2 tablespoons of whole wheat flour, and a 1/4 cup of rye flour, and that's just kind of been the combination of flours that I like to use in my bread. You're just going to mix the dough together until all the flour is mixed in and the dough is shaggy. And if you need to add a little bit more water, you can do that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So you're actually going to let this rest for about 20 minutes. That's called the autolyse stage. And then you're going to add the salt and knead it. So we're going to let that rest for 20 minutes. And when it's resting, you want to cover it with a kitchen towel. All right, so now we're back. So the bread has had 20 minutes to rest, or the dough has had 20 minutes to rest. So now we're going to add the salt. So this is 1 teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So we're going to put it on top of the dough. And then we're going to put the dough onto the counter so that I can knead it. So this dough is fairly hydrated, so it might be a little bit sticky, but you basically just want to knead it until the dough feels supple. All right, so I've been kneading this for about 8 minutes and the texture feels what I would describe as supple. So I'm going to stop kneading it and I'm going to put it into the same container that I used for the dough that I made yesterday. And then I'm going to put it in the fridge and I won't pull it out until tomorrow after work. So you want to choose a container that has enough room for the dough to double or triple in size. If you don't have a plastic container that's big enough for that, then you could use a glass bowl and then cover it with saran wrap. If you don't cover it, then when you pull it out the next day, it's going to have kind of a hard crust on top, which you don't want. Hi, we're back now. So it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes since I shaped the bread and let it proof. So let's take a look and see how it's doing. Okay, so the seams stayed sealed this time, but well, they're a little bit loose here. So if you ever have seams that open, you just want to gently pinch them closed. So I preheated the oven to 450 degrees. They say that you should preheat it about an hour before with the Dutch oven in it, but I don't really like to leave my oven on for that long. So I preheated it, and once it reached the temperature that I wanted, I left my Dutch oven in there for 5 to 10 more minutes. And now I'm checking on the bread, and I'm gonna pull out the Dutch oven and we'll get ready to bake this. So you have to remember that the lid to the Dutch oven is very hot, so make sure you use your oven mitts when you move that lid. And then we're gonna put a little bit of oil. I use grapeseed oil. And we'll just spread that around at the bottom of the pan. And then we're gonna gently and carefully tip the bread into the Dutch oven, so be careful that you don't burn yourself. And then we're going to score it. So scoring is optional. For a more rustic look, you can leave it fully sealed and it will naturally open up on its own and it will be a very unique appearance. But I like to use my bread lamb to score it. So now it's ready to go in the oven. So we're going to bake it for 25 minutes and we're going to reduce the oven temperature to 400 degrees. Okay, so the bread is in the oven. I've reduced the temperature from 450 degrees down to 400 degrees and I set the timer for 25 minutes. We're going to bake it with the lid on and then we're going to remove the lid and bake it for an additional 15 minutes. So we'll see you back then. All right, so it's been 25 minutes and it's time to take the lid off the Dutch oven. And we can see what the bread is starting to look like. This is always exciting. Looks good so far. So we're gonna close this up and we're gonna let it bake for 15 more minutes. Okay, so it's been 15 more minutes, so it's time to pull the bread out of the oven. So you want to be careful when you lift it out of your Dutch oven so you don't burn yourself. And then you want to put it on a rack to cool for about 30 minutes. If you want to make sure the bread is done, you can either put a thermometer in it and it should be at least 190 degrees Fahrenheit, or you can knock on the bottom of it and it should sound hollow, so we'll give that a try. Sounds like it's done. Okay, the bread is cool now, so it's ready to be sliced into and enjoyed. So let's take a look at the crumb. Looks pretty good, feels nice and light. And there's still a little bit of steam coming out. So I hope you enjoy your fresh sourdough bread.